everyone, and welcome to the Owl Pod, the official podcast of Temple Athletics. I'm your host, Kevin Copp, and happy Halloween, everyone. To celebrate, we have a very spooky guest today. Now, we have a very nice, lovely human being joining us today, one of the newest members of our Temple Athletics team, Brian Thornburg. Brian joined us in October of 2025 as the Executive Senior Associate Athletic Director for Development and NIL Strategy. Came to Temple after distinguished roles at the George Washington University, University of Maryland. He also spent a decade at Virginia Tech, as well as stops at Penn State and my alma mater, the University of Georgia. In his capacity at Temple, Brian will oversee the Owl Club's traditional fundraising operations while integrating name, image, and likeness opportunities that benefit student-athletes. Of course, a lot to talk about with the current landscape of college athletics. Great conversation, no tricks, all treats with our good friend Brian Thornburg. That's coming up after this word from our Owl Club sponsors.
And we're back with the action. Coke Zero Sugar might be the best Coke ever.
That's right, Jim. With an irresistible taste and zero sugar, Coke Zero Sugar is a must-try for any sports fan. So make sure you... Wait, Jim, I didn't mean try it right now. We're still on the air.
Best Coke ever? Take a taste, Jen.
Really?
No, not right now, Jen. We got a game to call.
Hear me all right?
Yeah, you're loud.
I got you.
Yeah.
I'm loud. That's my... I'll turn myself down. Forget how loud I am. All right. Well, welcome to Temple.
Thank you.
Happy to have you here. Just for folks to go through, I got to make sure I have it right here. I have all my notes and my research. We do long titles here at Temple, as you've learned.
I'm still trying to figure out my title as well.
Yeah. I thought I could do it off the cuff. Executive Senior Associate AD for Development and NIL Strategy. So before we get into all that, I think it's funny because obviously most people that we talk to on the podcast, either current or former coaches, current or former student athletes. I'm just assuming by the research I've done now, you were not a student athlete in college. You were like me. You were a regular old student.
That's right. No, I was not a student athlete.
Okay, so there's much less information on the non-athletes in the world.
Right.
The research is much harder to come by for general civilians like yourself and myself. But I was able to dig up, is Ickard, North Carolina? Is that correct?
Well, it's Eichard.
See,
Eichard.
We're off to a bad start.
And one of my joys in life is to promote Eichard.
Well, tell me about Eichard, because clearly I can't even get the pronunciation right, so I'm not familiar. So tell me about Eichard.
Well, it's a small little town just outside of Hickory, North Carolina, and there's really not much there. But my mother grew up there, and my father grew up in Hildebrand, which is right next door. And but I like to say one of my goals in life is just to promote it, and hopefully people know where it's at.
How many people are in Eichard?
Oh, it's 2,000. I mean, it's tiny.
Okay.
It's not even incorporated. It's just a little area.
Now, your mom and dad were in neighboring towns. What were they doing? How did they meet?
So, they met, I think they met in junior high school, but they started dating in high school. They were high school sweethearts. And, my mom was 1 year older. They were close to the same age, 1 year apart in school. And so they went to the same high school.
Very nice. Yeah. And so you end up going to school at the University of North Carolina, which is fun for we're going to get to. So you get your bachelor's at North Carolina, you get your master's at Georgia.
Right.
And so this spoke to me. Now, I grew up here. I grew up in King of Prussia, but UNC at Chapel Hill and UGA were the two schools that I applied to. Those are the two schools that I visited. Right. I fell in love with both of them. I had in my mind, I want to go to the South for college, and I loved both towns, but I found them to be very similar. And I'm wondering, you got obviously a lot more time than I did there, 4 years at UNC, and then you're at Georgia. So tell me about your impression of Chapel Hill and Athens. What was your verdict?
Well, I think you're right. I think both schools were very similar when I went to Athens. I thought, well, this is Chapel Hill, but just a couple, 100 miles south.
Yeah.
So
maybe a few more bars.
Very similar, a few more bars, but very similar.
Yeah.
And very passionate fan bases, which is what I enjoyed as well.
Now, did you have a sports background? Now, obviously, you're not looking at playing sports in college, but did you just, in the course of growing up, were sports a big thing for you?
It was, yeah. I mean, I played every sport growing up. I mean, basketball was my first true love. I played soccer, baseball, 1 year of football, My dad talked me out of it after 1 year, and then track and golf and tennis and everything basically. So sports was always a big part of my life. And so when I went to college, my goal was, growing up was always to make the basketball team at UNC. And
Sure.
That's something that just when you go to college and you see the incoming freshman class of Vince Carter and Antoine Jameson, you realize there's a much different
you missed
level.
it by that much.
Yeah, but the cool thing is Carolina had a JV basketball program, and I didn't make the team, but I made it through the first cut to the final cut. So I was close to making the JV team, but it was all basketball and sports was always a part of me growing up. So it was exciting when I realized that there was a world beyond going to the game. There was a business around college athletics, and I really learned that the year after college. I worked as an office assistant in the athletic business office at North Carolina, and so I realized that there's a lot there. There's a lot that I don't know, but that intrigued me, and so that caused me to think about how to advance my career, and that's where I chose to go to University of Georgia for sports management.
And so by that point, that was kind of the, commitment, so to speak, to saying, okay, this is a way to kind of keep something that I think so many of us, are either former athletes or,
Right.
just frustrated former, people who would have been athletes, but, at some point, for you, it ran out, JV at North Carolina. For me, it ran out at like age 9. I was
Sure.
like, okay, there's no future left in any of this. So what am I
Right.
going to do? And I got into broadcasting, and that was my way of just keeping a toe in that. And so, going to Athens with the intent to actually delve into sport management. And I assume at that point thinking like, hey, this is going to be the career path. What was that experience like? What sorts of things were you able to get, kind of your hands into in Athens?
Yeah, that's really true. I mean, I didn't know where the journey was going to take me. And it was a couple of years, probably 3 years, starting at UNC in the business office, going to graduate school for a year, and then doing an internship for a year before I realized what it is that I really wanted to do. But when I went to grad school, I was so nervous that I wasn't going to figure it out, that anytime there was an assignment or a volunteer needed, I raised my hand because I wanted to experience it all. So, I did a couple things. I was an usher for men's and women's basketball games. I was a mentor for 3 basketball players in academics. I sold tickets in the ticket office for the Georgia-Florida football game. And then I volunteered in the development office. And during that time, I realized that there was something to development that I liked. But on day one, the person that I interviewed with asked me if I could ask people for money. And I said no.
yeah.
And she said, okay. No problem. Here's a project. We're going to reinvent the Letterman's Club at Georgia, and I want you to go and research it and give me information and put a PowerPoint together. And so I did. And through the course of that semester, I realized, hey, maybe I like this. I like talking to people. I like having a different something to do every day that's different. And this could be a way for me to make an impact and give back.
All right, well, I'm glad you said it because that was, I can't possibly sit here and not ask, but that is so entwined with it. You can't do it forever and not get to the point where you're going to find yourself sitting across a lot of tables and asking folks for money.
Absolutely.
And so, again, I love so many of the ideas of things that come with development.
Right.
Hey, everyone thinks it's just rounds of golf and steak dinners and whatever else. But,
Sure.
there is obviously a point where you get to a bottom line. Is that come to in your nature? Did you have to develop I just can't picture doing it. So I'm endlessly fascinated by anything I can't do. So tell me how that kind of comfort came about.
Yeah. So through that year and then even the next year when I was an intern at the Wolfpack Club, I guess I learned from really, really great people. There have been so many people in my life that have given me advice and guided me along the way. And there's too many people to name, but when I went to NC State, Bobby Purcell was the longtime fundraiser there, and he, along with Stephen Ponder and Ed Stack and Buzzy Carell, those guys, Carlton Creech, who was there, just really helped me to understand the process of fundraising. And really, what I boil it down to is there's really three things. You're building relationships with people, which is what I enjoy doing. I like to hear their story. I like to understand who they are, and you got to build that relationship and build that trust. The second thing is, you have to be comfortable telling the story of what we're trying to accomplish. And so here at Temple, how can we elevate the Owls? How can we raise financial support to support our student athletes in a number of ways? And then finally, you have to ask for money. And so for me, if I build a relationship and I can tell that compelling story, that last part is really easy, because we have a similar focus, and we have a similar goal in mind, and we can find a way to accomplish it.
I think it's one of the interesting things, and I think in college athletics writ large, which is the only place I've ever worked, and I think looking at your work history, it's similar. You've kind of been working your way up the Eastern Seaboard, more or less. You have stop in Maryland and at George Washington more recently before coming here to Temple and to Philly. But you talked about two really important things, I think, that are obviously the trust that you're building with the people that you're talking to, getting to know them as people, right, and the story of the institution itself. And I'm just curious, it's got to be a little bit daunting anytime this is an industry that has just a lot of turnover and churn built into it. That's just the nature of working in college sports. But I do think it's a little bit easier if you're working, I don't know, I'm just going to say compliance. If you're working in compliance, there's not necessarily a whole, if you're going to go from George Washington to Temple, there's not necessarily an entire culture. The compliance is the compliance. The rules are the rules, right? There's not a whole lot necessarily that needs to be reinvented. But I think in your world, it would be inauthentic to, I'm sure that the approach that you have at Maryland is not the same you have at NC State, is not the same you have at GW, is not the same you have at Temple. So does it make it a little more challenging, and you've had a few stops along the way, of, obviously it's just a new population of donors to get to know and names and faces, but also, again, to be authentic to the story that you're trying to tell and learn more about, the institution you are. Is, what is that process like for you?
Well, in the last 25, 26 years, so after graduate school and internship, I went to Virginia Tech and worked at the Hokie Club for 11 years. And when I look back at that time, I worked for a wonderful person, Lou Merritt, was the director there for the whole time I was there. And when I left, I did something. I looked around and I counted the number of years that the 6 fundraisers had been at Virginia Tech. And I think it was like 126 years worth of experience at one place.
Wow.
And so I really valued that. And I really loved the fact that I was able to be there that long and to establish relationships and to be a part of a lot of successes. And so, over the past 25, 26 years, this is maybe the 5th place I've been, but I was at Virginia Tech for 11. I was at Maryland for 8.5 years. And so I really want to be where I'm at. And so I've never ever thought about moving around. If an opportunity presented itself, it had to be the right fit and it had to make sense. And so, coming to Temple was really it was a perfect combination. My wife's from an hour away in Lancaster. And so it was an opportunity to move closer to her family. Plus, it was an opportunity I saw to work with great people. Arthur Johnson. I worked with one of his close friends at Maryland, and just seeing the alignment of the university from President Fry to Al Cecchio to Christopher Britton, it just made me want to be here and be a part of something really special. And so the fit has to be there, and I'm not somebody that makes quick decisions and moves around a lot. So I hope it comes across as I get to meet people that I really want to be here, and I'm excited about what Temple can do, and I'm just happy to play a part in accomplishing that.
Well, I'm sure you've seen one of the things that has always been apparent to me, and I always, I feel sometimes, a little funny because I did grow up here, and so I have that knowledge of growing up in the area and understanding, growing up in the suburbs, but in the Philadelphia area. And so I knew Temple growing up, but I didn't go here. And I went to a school that in a lot of ways is the opposite. University of Georgia, big land grant, Southern school, lots of green space. So, I'm honest with people that ask me, and I love it here. I've worked here for 10 years. But I didn't go here, and I chose a different path. But I say to everyone the same thing. The people that come here and that graduate from here love it here. There is as much passion for Temple among the people that graduate. I'm sure that has been immediately evident to you as you're getting out there and getting to know people. You can detect right away, and I think it is something of a Philadelphia attribute writ large, just the way that we have attachment to our sports teams, the way that we have attachment to so many things that are kind of this city. I feel like Temple fits into that in a way for the people that did go here. It is something that is truly, really special about it.
Yeah, there's no doubt. I mean, you realize that very early on that there's a passion here, and honestly, that makes you want to be a part of it. I did not go to school here, but I'm honored that I was given an opportunity to represent the people of Temple, the alums, the parents, the student athletes, the former student athletes, and I really enjoy the fact that there is passion. Being a graduate of Temple means something. Pulling for the Owls means something, and so I want to be a part of that. The best way to describe me is I'm a team player. It's never about what I can do or what I accomplished. It's always about what we can do together. How can we build something? And if I can be a part of something, I always want to do that. I want to invest in that. And so, I felt that early on in conversations when I first, found out about this opportunity, and that hasn't changed. That passion only comes out more and more as each day.
Now, you talked about alignment between athletics and the university, and this question may be too inside baseball. We'll see. But I think one of the interesting things, the way that your job is structured is you report both here in athletics, but you're also a part of the university's institutional advancement. And so you have two things that are related in some ways and not related in other ways in terms of, what fundraising for a university is like, what fundraising for an athletics department is like. And I know this is all still new, but how do you navigate that in the world of fundraising? Obviously, there's a rising tide that can lift all boats.
Yes. But,
there's also, only so many pieces of the pie, whatever you can pick your metaphor. Right. But how do you kind of work through some of those, I don't want to say challenges, but just work through that, setup when you have, kind of those dual responsibilities?
Sure. Well, it's actually interesting. At each of the places that I've worked at before, we had a similar setup. So I've always had an opportunity to work with the university, but your day to day, you sit in the athletic department. And so for me, I'm very comfortable in that world. And I view it as I have many more resources than I would have if I didn't have either one. And so, I work very closely with institutional advancement. I sit on that executive leadership team there, and there's a ton of resources that they help us with every day, from research to gift acceptance to stewardship opportunities to events. There's so many people in the university that we rely on, and all the other colleges and units rely on. And then, living in athletics is its own world. Our building is vibrant. Yeah. There's always something going on outside the door, in the hallway. There's teams and practices and games, and I enjoy that aspect as well. But there's a whole world of resources here as well. And so, in conversations with Arthur, we talk a lot about how great it is that we have the alignment and the partnerships with the university. It enhances what we can do. We want there to be collaboration back and forth. We want people to know what's going on. And so it's really, I view my job as kind of a bridge between both. And the more I can have transparent conversations and openness, we're only going to raise more money. And that's really what it's about.
Tell me, speaking of the university side, I think it's great timing with just recently the massive donation to the College of Public Health, the Christopher M. Barnett
Right.
College of Public Health, largest individual gift in the history of Temple University, $55 million. Am I correct?
That's right.
Yeah.
55.
So, yeah, obviously, when you have something like that, I imagine, and again, it's not necessarily directly to athletics, but I think there's ways in which we, again, are going to see the benefit of the trickle out of that gift. But I imagine in your world, you have to see something like that and say, oh, this is a little bit of a beacon or a signal that we're on to something as a university here.
Absolutely. I mean, looking at the short amount of time that President Fry's been here, I believe there's two gifts. One gift was over $27 million, maybe 27.5, and then the $55 million gift from Christopher M. Barnett to name the College of Public Health. And that happened in week one of me being here, and I thought, wow, what a great gift.
You've made a difference already.
You show up, and
the $55 million checks start coming in.
I was as surprised as anybody. I was in the room, but I was surprised. But we talk about in our office, we talk about momentum a lot of times, and sometimes, to use that baseball analogy, sometimes you have to create your own momentum. You have to get the runner on first base, no matter how, and then you got to move them to second. And so when you see a university having success, that's a talking point. That's a pride point for all of us, no matter what college or school you're a part of, because you're showing what Temple is doing. You're showing that we're growing, we're innovative, people pay attention to the things happening on campus. And I think that's what President Fry is really instilling is, hey, there's so many good things happening at Temple. And now with a gift, it magnifies it, and the reach just goes even and farther. So, it's very exciting, and you want to be a part of a university where these types of gifts happen, and hopefully we can have some success finding some additional ones. And who knows, sky's the limit.
Tell me about to bring it back to where we started, kind of with your title. I'm sure it was not lost on you, not lost on anyone that's listening, that in there as well as development is NIL strategy, and I think it's of the time that we are living in 2025 that those have become intertwined. And we've seen here from the rollout of the competitive excellence funds over the summer, which are the opportunities for folks that are inclined to donate directly to student athletes, to give coaches the discretion to compensate their student athletes. And then there are still all of the traditional mechanisms that have always existed, the Owl Club annual fund, the sports-specific funds, the things that have kind of been the bread and butter of college development and fundraising for at least my entire lifetime, and I'm sure your time in this industry. So, with so much going on, and I always say, I think as the layperson, we're in it every day, and sometimes we even have trouble keeping up with it. I think for the layperson, it can just sometimes feel like so overwhelming. I don't even know where I'm supposed to give, what I'm supposed to do, what's helpful, what's not helpful, where can my money go for this? I'm sure these are questions you get. So how are you navigating all of that in these times in which we live?
Well, that you sound like every donor we talk to, because
is that the number one question that comes up?
Where should I give? And that really, the nice thing about what we do is, we're here to help, to educate, to help them make decisions, and ultimately we want them to give where they feel the most impact, and so. But with NIL, that is a part of the title. I'm excited about that being there, because it represents a collaboration. It represents what the vision that Arthur has and that the university has. For the last 3 years, we had, collectives. I know of the Tough Fun, and I think there were a couple others that did tremendous amount of work and really helped us in so many ways. And we're forever grateful for all the work that they did, because they stepped up at a time where the NCAA didn't allow departments to receive the funds. So, the collectives were very important. So after the House settlement, it allows for a little bit of a reset in that we can now be a part of that with the revenue sharing, and so having it in the title allows for us just to have a more comprehensive conversation. So when we go out and have a conversation with a donor, obviously we're talking about the student athletes and the impact that gifts have on them. And now we can have a conversation and then just add the NIL piece and say, if you're interested in supporting a student athlete in this way, this is an additional piece that we can help you with. And so I think I like to think that this will help, because the donors that have supported us for so long have familiarity with us. They have trust in us and the university. And so hopefully it will help in terms of raising additional dollars for NIL.
I'm going to ask a question that might feel a little bit dicey. And I don't want you to go into specifics, but I do think it's helpful for folks to hear, because obviously this has all come about in such a rapid change. So, I mean, at the time that NIL is really coming into being, are you still at Maryland at that point in time?
Yes.
GW? Okay.
We've been at Maryland.
So,
yes.
Again, I don't want you to reveal any state secrets, but I do want folks to know, because I think sometimes it's easy for people to become frustrated and say, oh, I wish, I'm just going to say, I wish Temple was doing X, Y, and Z. Why aren't we doing this? I think it's important to have someone Maryland, by all accounts, Big Ten school, great TV deal. There's a lot of, positive things happening in and around Maryland athletics. I'm sure that you can attest even at that scale, and I'm sure you talk to people that are at the Georgias and Alabamas and Clemsons of the world. It's a challenge for everyone. Nobody has this. Even the schools that you look at, they're, I've heard this, that, and the other, and they're paying this quarterback $20 million or whatever else. Every school is dealing with challenges right now in this landscape.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, when something's new, everyone tries to figure out what it is and how we can be successful. So that's no different at Maryland or Temple or George Washington. The scale might be different, but it's been an interesting couple years, and I think we're in a good place now, post House settlement, because like I said, we're able to, as we've talked to donors for a long time, and for a couple years they weren't able to make donations to impact our student athletes to us.
Right.
And so now we can do that. And so I think for that purpose alone, it's a positive. And I just think we can have a bigger impact now that we've been able to consolidate.
All right, you talked about some of those priorities, and I'm sure as you're having the conversations with Arthur and with President Fry and with the leadership in IA and Al Cecchio and everyone, give me some sense of what that plan looks like, where those priorities lie. Obviously, for you, if I guess a better way to ask this would be, tell me about just kind of you're coming into a time right now within athletics where you used the word momentum earlier.
Right.
We can feel it with football right now.
Yes.
You can literally feel the momentum. I know you've been on. Are you 2-0? When was your actual start date?
Start day was October the 5th.
Ah,
which
okay,
was
so
a
you were here.
Sunday.
So you started in time for that day. We'll have to forgive you for Navy. We got
right.
close there, but you're
Close.
2-0 on the road.
2-0 on the road.
You're doing well.
That's
You're
right.
doing, but so you can feel the momentum.
Yes.
From this football team. How does that unlock some of what you and what Arthur, obviously you have a vision for what this university is trying to do, what Temple Athletics is trying to do. When you have, listen, it helps us all for the teams to be successful. I know that's nothing new. I'm not breaking any news there, but when you have the ability to seize on a little bit of this momentum, and we have basketball that's right around the corner as we're sitting here, and I think there's a lot of justified excitement around our men's and women's basketball teams this year. How are you able to kind of, springboard on top of that to kind of push forward where we want to be in athletics?
Yeah, no question. I think it goes back to what I said originally. Our job really is to build relationships with people, and when you have success on the field, you may have an opportunity to have additional conversations with people. People pay attention to teams when they're winning. Obviously we have a very passionate fan base, and they support us whether you win a game or you lose a game. But, our goal is to build as many relationships with people and tell the story that we're trying to tell. Now, I kind of laughed when you were asking a question because I'm still trying to understand
Sure.
what that story is. But at the foundation, our goals are to grow the donor base and to raise more support for Temple Athletics. So, growing the donor base is we need more people to contribute to the Owl Fund, the annual fund, be a member of the Owl Club, and that's one great way. And so, at its core, $100, you can be a member of the Owl Club, and you can help us, and you are helping us. And then number two, in addition to the numbers, obviously we're trying to raise more support so that we can do more things. And with the NIL world where it is now, we have the Competitive Excellence Fund, so people have more opportunities. And as we continue to get out and meet more and more people, we can have conversations, and if there's questions, we can answer those questions so that it frees them up to make donations and to support us. So maybe you have to check back with you on the specifics, but
no, that I think that makes perfect sense. As I said earlier, so much of the fun for me in getting to do this is I get to just ask questions of people that are able to do things that I can't, and I'm curious on just a total personal level. How do you keep track of names and faces? You could not make it this far in your career without being pretty good at it. Is that something that has always come naturally to you?
I'd say for the most part it is. There are times where the biggest joy is being able to call someone's name, or at the very least before they walk away, say goodbye to them and call them by name. That makes me feel good. But for the most part, I'm pretty good at remembering. I just try to be present.
Yeah.
I try to think, well, if I walked up to someone and had a conversation with them, I'd want them to know my name.
Mm-hmm.
And so I really try to be intentional and focus on who they are and what the conversation is, so that I'm giving them the respect that they want, that I'd want them to give to me. So but it's a challenge. It's a challenge.
I was gonna say, I
There's
think
a lot
that would be the thing. I think that might scare me more than the asking for money part. I think I'd be more scared if I'm taking this job to say, oh my goodness, I'm so terrible at it, and it's awful. And we meet a lot of people, you're around a lot, and
yeah.
I am not saying that I have any sort of celebrity status in any way, but sometimes people know, just the voice from doing the radio, or they've seen you on TV or something like that. And I just, oh my gosh, it's a great shame of mine that I need to come clean on. I'm terrible with names and faces, so I'm in awe of anyone that can do it as well as you can.
Well, thank you.
Well, what is next for you? As you, I know you're talking about just kind of getting the lay of the land, and as we're sitting here on October 30th, people are listening to this on Friday, on Halloween, hopefully. So, I mean, less than a month in, obviously, but just the chance to kind of meet people, get the lay of the land. What's kind of the next 30 days or the next kind of big thing that's on your list personally?
Sure. No, I'm 1 month in, and the reception has just been absolutely tremendous. I actually had a chance to come up to the Oklahoma game in I guess late September, and meet some people. So we don't count that one against my record.
Yep, not official.
Okay.
Yep, you're still 2-1. You're good.
But for me, it's going to take a long time to meet everyone, and so but I love going to games, football games. I try to get up there early and walk around and just the tailgating, the excitement is something that I really enjoy. So I'll be out there early on Saturday for our game, and as for the rest of the year. And then with basketball, it's the same opportunity to meet so many people, and so I'm excited about that. I'm excited for our staff to continue to do that as well. And as we talk about, our team is trying to support the Owls as much as possible and to elevate. And so my focus is on that. And so whatever we can do to help elevate the Owls, to raise more money, to support Temple Athletics, we're going to do it.
Well, I say this not just as your coworker, also as an Owl Club member, proud Owl Club member here. I appreciate everything that you've been able to do already. Obviously, it's not an easy time, regardless of the job you're working. It's not easy to start anywhere in college on October 5th. Is a really uniquely tough date where just everything's happening. You're less than a month from basketball season. You're getting thrown into week 5 of football. But clearly, you and this team have hit the ground running, and just wish you all the success.
Well, thank you. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to have this platform, and the message that I have to all the supporters out there is, we're here to help. We're here to help support the Owls. And if we can help, or if we can have a conversation, please let us know.
Well, I hope that people are listening, and if they are, and someone is, hey, either I want to get involved or I have a question or something, what's the best way for folks that are listening on the podcast, if they want to get involved with the Owl? Is it TempleOwlClub.com? Is that just the easiest thing to do?
Yes, TempleOwlClub.com, or give us a phone call.
Perfect. All right. Well, you heard him. Do it. Please, if you're not already, join the Owl Club. Having been an Owl Club member for many years, it's a great way to be able to give back. And again, I think it's an exciting time, and there is plenty more room on the bandwagon. So we encourage everyone to get involved. And Brian Thornburg, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you so much.
All right, that's this week's episode of the Owl Pod. I want to thank my guest, Brian Thornburg. A reminder, our good friends David Litvin and Amelia Wright are back on the Tuesday edition of the Owl Pod with an all-new episode as we turn the calendar to November. I'll be back with you next Friday. And as a reminder, if you want to support the Owl Club, please be sure to subscribe, leave a rating, tell your friends. You can listen on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon, anywhere you get your podcasts. We are also on Instagram at The Owl Podcast. Special thanks to Christy Bannon, Justin Miller, Prince Moody, and our executive producer, Dan Lobaz. I'm Kevin Copp. Thanks so much for listening, everyone. Happy trick-or-treating, and go Owls.